the alien princess defied tradition, standing beside a human. The sun reflected off the polished domes and the wide glass streets below, making the entire city shimmer like a jewel. From up here, everything seemed peaceful, perfect, and ordered, as it always was in the heart of the Aelorian Empire. But Lyra knew that life in the lower sectors was not so perfect. The Aelorian elite rarely went down there. They said it was dangerous, chaotic, even uncivilized. Lyra had always disagreed, though. There was life, energy, and truth in the lower city that the towers above could never show. Today, she had found herself restless. There was a ceremonial event approaching, a grand arrangement that would cement the Aelorian alliances with the neighboring systems. Every detail of her life had been planned. The clothes she would wear, the words she would speak, the actions she would perform. But she felt suffocated by the expectations, by the chains of tradition. She wanted to see something real, something unpolished, something that reminded her why she lived. Slipping quietly from the tower, Lyra moved through the polished corridors of the palace until she reached the service elevator that connected to the streets below. The lift's hum was soft, almost comforting. She had done this before, but never without a servant's supervision. Today, she went alone. The streets of the lower sectors were narrow and winding, a stark contrast to the clean and organized upper city. The buildings leaned close together, their walls covered in colorful murals and neon signs that flickered with advertisements, messages, and art. Lyra walked carefully, listening to the chatter around her. Merchants called out their goods, children played games she didn't recognize, and the scent of unfamiliar foods drifted from small stalls. There was chaos here, but it was alive, and Lyra felt a strange excitement stirring in her chest. Turning a corner, she nearly stumbled over a man working on a small mechanical device. He was human, tall and lean, with messy dark hair and oil-stained hands. Humans were rare in Xylar Prime. Most of the citizens were Aelorian, with their smooth features and perfect posture. This man seemed different, real. "Excuse me," Lyra said carefully, stepping back to avoid knocking him over. The man looked up, surprised. "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there." He studied her for a moment, his eyes curious but not disrespectful. "Are you lost?" Lyra smiled faintly. Not lost, just exploring. She wondered if he would recognize her as a princess, but she had dressed plainly, her royal garments replaced with simple clothes she had borrowed from a servant. "I'm Ethan," he said, wiping his hands on a cloth. "And you are?" Lyra hesitated, then decided to speak the truth in a subtle way. "Lyra," she said, giving only her first name. "I like to see how things really work down here. Not everything is perfect like in the towers." Ethan nodded, his expression lighting up. "I know what you mean. Sometimes the machines up there can't fix what we can down here. You just need someone willing to get their hands dirty." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "You fix machines?" "Yes," he said proudly, holding up the small device. It was a delicate energy conduit, sparking slightly. "This one's tricky. The energy flow keeps fluctuating. It's unstable." Lyra leaned closer, curious despite herself. "Can you fix it?" "I think so," Ethan said, smiling. "But it needs careful adjustment. One wrong move and—" he gestured to the sparking conduit. "Well, you don't want that to happen." Lyra watched him work. His hands moved confidently and quickly, twisting, turning, and adjusting the delicate mechanisms. Sparks danced briefly, but then the conduit settled, glowing steadily with a soft blue light. "There," Ethan said, stepping back. "Good as new." Lyra blinked, impressed. "That was amazing. How did you know what to do?" Ethan shrugged modestly. "Experience, observation. A little trial and error." He looked at her with genuine curiosity. "Not many people come down here to watch someone work. Most of the nobles would just stand and watch me fail." Lyra smiled softly. "I wanted to see something real, something honest." For a moment, they simply looked at each other, strangers from entirely different worlds, connected by a shared appreciation of skill and curiosity. Lyra felt a strange pull toward him, a feeling she had never experienced with anyone in her royal life. "You should be careful," Ethan said after a moment, his voice low. "It's not always safe to wander alone, especially for someone from the upper towers." "I can take care of myself," Lyra replied confidently, though a part of her acknowledged that he was right. They walked together through the streets, Lyra listening as Ethan explained how the energy conduits worked, how the city below survived, and how humans and Elorians sometimes had to cooperate to keep the systems running. She found herself laughing at his small jokes, nodding at his clever observations, and realizing that she had never met anyone quite like him. Hours passed unnoticed. Lyra forgot the palace, the ceremony, even the chains of duty that usually pressed so heavily upon her. For the first time, she felt free. Suddenly, a sound of alarm echoed through the street. A minor energy surge had caused lights to flicker and some machines to spark dangerously. Ethan immediately moved toward the source, Lyra following without hesitation. He worked quickly, analyzing the problem and adjusting the conduits, while Lyra watched closely, fascinated. "You're incredible," she said quietly. "You think so clearly, even in a crisis." Ethan shrugged, his focus unwavering. "You get used to it when your job depends on it. Sometimes you have to fix things no one else can." Lyra's heart swelled with admiration. Here was a human, a stranger, performing with courage and intelligence, traits that her own society often overlooked in others. She realized that humans, though different, possessed qualities that could surprise even the most disciplined Elorians. When the surge was contained, Ethan looked at Lyra and smiled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Well, that was exciting, wasn't it?" Lyra laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Yes, exciting and enlightening." She hesitated, then asked, "Do you think humans and Elorians could really work together on a bigger scale?" Ethan considered her question. "Why not? We already do it every day down here." "It's just that most people don't notice, or they think it's impossible." Lyra's mind raced. Could this one human, with his courage, intelligence, and determination, show her a different path? A life that wasn't dictated by ceremonies, expectations, or rigid tradition? She didn't know yet, but she wanted to find out. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the city in shades of pink and gold, Lyra realized it was time to return to the palace. She didn't want anyone to notice her absence, not yet. But as she said goodbye to Ethan, a strange promise formed silently between them. A promise of future meetings, future conversations, and perhaps a future where the rigid boundaries of her world could be questioned. Walking back through the crowded streets, Lyra felt a sense of purpose she had never known. The city below was not just a place of chaos and struggle, it was a place of learning, growth, and connection. And somewhere, hidden among the neon signs, the marketplaces, and the small human inventions, she had found something that the towers above could never offer: truth, curiosity, and the spark of friendship that might change her life forever. By the time Lyra returned to her tower, the first stars had appeared in the sky. She looked out from her balcony again, but this time the view felt different. The city below was no longer just a sprawling landscape of light and order. It was alive, breathing, and full of stories waiting to be discovered. And somewhere down there, Ethan was already continuing his work, unaware of the profound impact he had made on a young princess who dared to defy tradition in her own quiet way. Lyra smiled softly to herself. Tomorrow she would return to the lower sectors. There was so much more to learn, so much more to see. And for the first time in her life, she looked forward to the unknown. The next morning, Princess Lyra woke earlier than usual. The soft glow of the twin suns spilled across her chamber, brushing the polished floors with light. She dressed quickly in simple clothes, the royal silk and jewels left behind, and felt a thrill in doing something ordinary, something unexpected. Today, she planned to return to the lower sectors, to the streets, the people, and most importantly, to Ethan. The palace corridors were quiet. Servants hurried about their duties, but none seemed to notice the young princess slipping away. Lyra's heart beat faster with every step, a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She had never felt so alive. When she arrived in the lower sectors, the city was just waking. The streets smelled of fresh bread and metal, mixed with the scent of exotic spices from the nearby food stalls. Children ran past her, laughing, while workers carried supplies and repaired broken devices. Lyra felt the familiar thrill of energy, life, and motion that she could never find in the palace towers. She found Ethan near the energy hub he had been working on yesterday. He was crouched beside a glowing conduit, adjusting the flow of energy with careful, practiced movements. The sparks danced along the wires, but he moved with precision and confidence. "Good morning," Lyra called softly, careful not to startle him. Ethan looked up, his face breaking into a warm smile. "You're back. I wasn't sure I'd see you today." Lyra laughed, a sound light and free. "I couldn't stay away. There's so much to see and I have so many questions." Ethan stood, brushing his hands on a cloth. "I don't mind answering questions. I like teaching people how things work down here. Most people don't care enough to ask." They walked together, weaving through the streets. Lyra noticed small details she had missed before. The way humans carried tools in their belts, how they worked together without needing instructions, and the subtle way they solved problems as they arose. It was not the perfection of the upper towers, but it was something deeper, something real. "Why do you live down here, Ethan?" Lyra asked, curiosity coloring her tone. He paused, thinking carefully. "Because this is where I belong." "Up there," he said, nodding vaguely toward the polished towers, "everything is perfect, controlled. Down here, things break, people struggle, but we create, fix, and grow. It's messy, yes, but it's alive. It's real." Lyra nodded, feeling a connection to his words. She had always known that the palace was beautiful but cold. Down here, she saw the energy of life in motion, the creativity, the determination, and the resilience. And she realized something important. Humans, though not perfect, had a strength she had never been taught to value in her world. They reached a small workshop, tucked away between two taller buildings. The door was heavy but open, and inside, the walls were lined with tools, parts, and small devices in various stages of repair. Ethan led her to a table covered in blueprints and partially assembled machines. "This is where I work," he said proudly. "I try to fix things others say are impossible. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I fail, but I never give up." Lyra walked around the workshop, her eyes wide. "It's amazing. Everything here is so alive, even the machines. They feel almost human in a way." Ethan chuckled. "I suppose that's one way to look at it. Machines reflect the people who work on them. Care, attention, patience, it all shows. That's why humans can surprise Alorians. You may have perfection, but we have persistence." Lyra considered his words carefully. There was truth in them, a strength she admired. The Alorians valued order, beauty, and tradition above all else, but humans valued action, innovation, and courage. She felt a spark of admiration, not only for Ethan but for his entire species. Over the next several hours, Lyra helped Ethan with small tasks. She passed him tools, held parts in place, and learned to adjust energy flows with careful attention. Each time a small device sparked to life under their hands, Lyra felt a thrill of accomplishment she had never experienced in royal duties or ceremonies. Ethan noticed her skill and determination. "You're learning fast," he said. "Most people would give up after the first failure. You don't." Lyra smiled, a quiet pride filling her chest. "I don't think I want to give up, not when things are this interesting." They paused for a moment, sitting on the edge of a work table. The hum of the machines filled the room, but it was a comfortable sound, a rhythm that matched the pulse of the city outside. "Do you ever wish you could see more of the galaxy?" Lyra asked softly. "Humans, Alorians, all of us together." not just in work or ceremonies, but exploring, learning, understanding each other. Ethan's eyes brightened. Every day. That's why I became an engineer. We humans don't have as much power or influence as Alorians, but we have curiosity. We ask questions. We try to understand things others ignore. Maybe one day we'll all work together, not just in this city, but across the stars. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling of hope and possibility. She had spent her life following rules, adhering to traditions, and maintaining appearances. But with Ethan, she saw a world of potential, a life beyond expectations, and a chance to redefine what strength truly meant. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of a small crowd gathering outside. A group of humans had noticed Lyra, and their curious eyes and polite whispers followed her as she emerged from the workshop. Normally, humans would not dare approach a princess. But today they smiled at her with genuine warmth, offering respectful greetings. Lyra waved at them, feeling a strange mixture of humility and joy. "See," Ethan said softly, "this is the beauty of life down here. People notice, people care. And they respect each other for who they are, not for their titles." Lyra nodded, realizing that he was right. For the first time she felt connected, not as a princess, but as someone who could understand, learn, and grow alongside others. As the afternoon passed, Lyra and Ethan walked through markets, observing craftsmen and engineers, tasting foods she had never imagined, and listening to the stories of those who lived and worked in the lower sectors. Lyra was fascinated by the resilience, creativity, and humanity of the people. Each encounter, each story, deepened her admiration for humans and strengthened her desire to bring change to her own world. At one point, they came across a small energy problem. A generator powering a water system had stopped working. While others panicked or hesitated, Ethan knelt beside the machine and examined it carefully. Lyra assisted, following his instructions with attention and care. Together, they managed to restore the flow of energy, and the water began running again. The people nearby cheered softly, their eyes filled with gratitude and respect. "Humans and Alorians could do amazing things together," Lyra whispered, more to herself than to Ethan. Ethan smiled, his gaze steady. "We already do, even if it's small. Imagine what we could do if everyone saw the value in working together." Lyra felt a swell of determination. She wanted to be that bridge, that connection between her people and the humans she had come to admire. She wanted to challenge the traditions that confined her, not recklessly, but thoughtfully, showing that cooperation, courage, and understanding could achieve more than blind adherence to rules ever could. As the suns began to set, casting long shadows across the streets, Lyra knew it was time to return to the palace. She walked beside Ethan, their steps in rhythm, the quiet companionship between them growing stronger with each shared moment. "I'll come back tomorrow," Lyra said softly. "There's still so much to see, so much to learn." Ethan nodded. "I'll be here. The city, the machines, the people, they'll all be here too, and you're welcome anytime." Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the suns above. She had found a world she had never known existed, a perspective that challenged everything she had been taught, and a human who showed her that strength came in many forms. As she returned to the palace, the towering walls felt different. They were no longer just symbols of tradition, duty, and expectation. Now they reminded her of the contrast between confinement and freedom, between observation and action, and between what was expected of her and what she could choose for herself. That night, lying in her chamber, Lyra thought about Ethan and the lower city. She thought about the people she had met, the machines she had helped repair, and the small victories of courage, skill, and cooperation. She realized that change was possible, not by defying tradition recklessly, but by showing the value of understanding, innovation, and collaboration. And as the twin moons rose above Xylar Prime, casting silver light across the towers, Lyra felt a sense of purpose she had never known. She had found a human who inspired her, a world that challenged her, and a path that might one day unite her people with those she had come to admire. The night was calm, but in Lyra's heart there was excitement. Tomorrow she would return to the lower sectors. Tomorrow she would continue to learn. And tomorrow she would take another step toward the possibility of a future where humans and Alorians could stand together, not as strangers or rivals, but as allies, friends, and partners in building a brighter galaxy. The grand halls of Xylar Prime glittered with light as the day of the ceremonial alliance arrived. Crystal chandeliers reflected rainbow colors across polished floors, and the air hummed with excitement. The Alorian court had gathered in full regalia, noble families in shining robes, their jewelry catching the light as they whispered to one another. Every detail had been prepared for months: the banners, the music, the carefully choreographed greetings. For Princess Lyra, it was a day of duty and expectation, a day when tradition would demand her obedience. But Lyra felt a tension in her chest, a mixture of anticipation and rebellion. She had spent weeks with Ethan in the lower sectors, learning about human resilience, creativity, and courage. Each meeting had revealed new ways of thinking, new possibilities, and a truth she could not ignore. The world was bigger than her palace, and strength was not always found in perfection or obedience. Her attendants dressed her in the ceremonial gown, a fabric that shimmered like liquid silver. The weight of the silk and the jewels reminded her of the responsibilities she carried. Yet beneath the surface, beneath the sparkling layers of tradition, she felt a quiet determination. Today, she would stand not only as a princess of the Alorian Empire, but as someone who believed in the value of understanding, courage, and partnership, values she had discovered in a human engineer far below the towers. As the ceremony began, the grand hall filled with dignitaries from across the neighboring systems. They bowed, whispered, and smiled in polite agreement, all expecting Lyra to pledge herself to the chosen Alorian noble. The moment had been rehearsed countless times, every word, every gesture, every glance. But Lyra's mind was elsewhere, focused on the one who had shown her a different way of seeing the galaxy, Ethan. When the high priest approached, holding the ceremonial scroll, Lyra stepped forward as expected. The noble she was supposed to join stood nearby, smiling politely, his posture perfect, his eyes gleaming with approval. The audience watched with anticipation, waiting for the traditional pledge that would cement alliances and uphold centuries of custom. Then Lyra paused. She looked toward the entrance of the hall. A murmur ran through the crowd as a figure appeared, a human, stepping forward with quiet confidence. It was Ethan. Gasps spread across the hall. Humans were rare visitors to Xylar Prime, and one walking freely into the grand chamber of the Alorian Empire was unthinkable. The noble who had been chosen to stand beside Lyra stiffened, confusion and indignation flickering across his face. The courtiers whispered furiously, their shock mingling with curiosity. Lyra's heart beat rapidly, but she felt a calm determination. She moved toward Ethan, the polished floor beneath her feet reflecting her resolve. She reached his side, standing not with the appointed noble, but beside the human who had opened her eyes to courage, ingenuity, and truth. "My people," she began, her voice clear and steady, carrying across the hall. "For centuries, we have followed tradition because it promised safety, order, and power. But today I stand not only as a princess of the Alorian Empire, but as someone who believes that strength comes in many forms." The room fell silent, eyes widened. Some courtiers frowned, whispering complaints to one another. Others leaned forward, curiosity and intrigue evident in their expressions. Lyra continued, her gaze sweeping across the audience. "I have walked among the people of our city, among those who work, create, and struggle without the comfort of wealth or status. I have learned from them, and I have learned from someone who is not of our species, a human named Ethan Hayes." A stir went through the crowd. Some gasped in disbelief. How could a princess publicly acknowledge a human, let alone place herself beside him during a sacred ceremony? Ethan stood calmly, his expression steady, his hands folded respectfully before him. He did not shrink or falter. He had shown Lyra the value of persistence, courage, and understanding, and now he would show the Elorian court that humans were more than outsiders. They were capable, honorable, and brave. Lyra's voice grew stronger, her conviction unwavering. Humans may be different from us, but they possess qualities that we often overlook: creativity, courage, and determination. They face challenges without the protection of wealth or tradition, and yet they thrive. They teach us that strength is not measured only by birth, status, or perfection, but by action, understanding, and cooperation. The noble who had been intended as her partner looked bewildered, his carefully maintained composure cracking under the weight of the unexpected. Some of the elders whispered furiously, unsure whether to intervene or remain silent. Lyra ignored them. She had spoken the truth she had discovered in the lower sectors, and now she would stand by it. Ethan stepped forward slightly, bowing respectfully to the court. "I am honored to stand beside Princess Lyra," he said clearly, "and I wish to show that humans can contribute, cooperate, and create alongside Elorians. We are not perfect, but we are capable, and together we can achieve more than either of our peoples could alone." A hush fell over the hall. The words were simple, yet powerful. Humans had rarely been given such recognition in the Empire, and the court felt the weight of this new possibility pressing against centuries of tradition. Lyra smiled at Ethan, a quiet gratitude in her eyes. "This alliance is not only about politics or appearances," she said. "It is about understanding, respect, and the recognition that every being, regardless of origin, can make a difference. I choose to stand with someone who embodies those values." For a long moment there was only silence. Then slowly reactions began to emerge. Some nobles shook their heads, muttering disapproval. Some elders frowned, their faces stern. But others leaned forward, their curiosity piqued. They had never heard words like these in a ceremonial hall before. Some saw a glimmer of truth in Lyra's defiance, a chance to rethink what it meant to lead and to serve. Lyra felt a surge of hope. This was more than a personal choice. It was the beginning of change. And it was possible because she had learned, through her time in the lower sectors and her friendship with Ethan, that courage and understanding could challenge even the strictest traditions. The high priest, initially frozen in shock, recovered and approached cautiously. "Princess Lyra," he said, his voice measured, "your words are unusual, but the ceremony may proceed as you wish, provided your intentions honor the Empire." Lyra inclined her head. "I honor the Empire by showing its strength in unity, not in blind adherence. I honor it by embracing courage, compassion, and partnership, qualities that make us greater than our traditions alone." With that, the ceremony continued, though differently than anyone had expected. Instead of pledging herself to a noble by birthright, Lyra stood beside Ethan, a human who had proven himself through action, intelligence, and respect. The crowd watched, uncertain yet captivated by the demonstration of bravery and open-mindedness. After the ceremony, the halls of Xylar Prime buzzed with conversation. Courtiers debated the meaning of Lyra's actions, some outraged, some inspired. Messages were sent to neighboring systems, where reports of the princess standing beside a human spread quickly. In some circles, it was seen as scandalous. In others, it was seen as a symbol of progress, a hope for a future where cooperation and respect transcended tradition. Lyra and Ethan walked through the palace gardens later, the soft glow of evening filling the air. The fountains shimmered under the light of the twin moons, and the gentle rustle of leaves provided a calm contrast to the excitement of the day. "You did it," Ethan said softly, a mixture of admiration and awe in his voice. Lyra smiled, but there was also a shadow of concern. "It was not easy. Many will be angry, some will refuse to accept it, but it was necessary. I had to show them a different way, even if it is only a small step." Ethan nodded. "Sometimes small steps lead to the biggest changes. You've shown them courage today, Princess. Not just your own, but the courage to see potential in others, even when it defies tradition." Lyra's heart swelled. She had feared the backlash, but standing beside Ethan, seeing him remain calm and respectful, she realized that true courage was not only in action, but in standing firm for what one believed. The palace staff, though initially hesitant, began to notice the ripple effects of Lyra's choice. Some courtiers approached cautiously, offering tentative congratulations. Others lingered at a distance, observing the bond between the princess and the human. Across the city, whispers of the unusual ceremony spread, carrying with them a sense of wonder and possibility. Lyra knew that the coming days would not be easy. There would be scrutiny, challenges, and doubt. But she also knew that she had taken the first step toward something greater, a future where understanding, courage, and partnership could redefine the meaning of strength. And she would not walk that path alone. Ethan remained at her side, a reminder that differences could be celebrated, that knowledge and skill could bridge gaps between worlds, and that courage could inspire even the most rigid societies. Together they walked through the gardens, the soft light reflecting on their determined faces, ready to face the questions, challenges, and opportunities that lay ahead. For Lyra, the day was not merely a defiance of tradition. It was a declaration that the galaxy was wide, full of possibilities, and that true leadership required openness, understanding, and the courage to embrace the unexpected. And for Ethan, it was a confirmation that humanity, though small in number, had a role to play in shaping a future far larger than anyone had imagined. As the night deepened and stars twinkled above Xylar Prime, the princess and the human walked side by side, not as ruler and subject, but as equals, friends, and partners in a journey that promised to change the galaxy one thoughtful step at a time. The alien princess defied tradition, standing beside a human,